Hi, I'm Aislinn and I'm the Building and Celebrating Communities Development Coordinator here at VASLan, and today I'm going to answer some questions for the evaluation of the Building Celebrating Communities project. I took this post up way back in May of 2021 and I officially started my role in VASLan in the office July 1st, 2021. And since then, my remit has been more or less the same until the fund is actually out. So it was very much just talking to people inside VASLan, working with partners, catching up on kind of what had happened. Obviously, since the project has been around since like 2016, there was a lot of catching up to do and a lot of people to talk to with loads of different information. So originally, my first a good 5-6 months, I just spent working with development officers in VASLan, speaking to people like the anchor organisations across South Lanarkshire, really trying my hardest to get a feel for what had already been done and what was working, what wasn't working, and really just trying to figure out what had been happening and how I could either better that or continue with what was happening and just get a new form of prospect, I suppose, for the project. And like I said, I spent a good couple months doing that. So again, I think I spent a lot of time working internally, just really getting to know the people that I work with, who I'm working under, who my colleagues are. I was the first kind of new hire out of a bunch of people, so I had a really good time spending a lot of quality time on Teams in person, coming to visit the office. So again, it was people like my line manager, people like the CEO, people that are kind of my equals, if you will, inside VASLan. And just like I said in the first question, a lot of my first month was spent speaking to anchor organisations, some of the quote-unquote bigger community groups across South Lanarkshire, just to really get a feel for if they knew what BCC was, did they know what was happening, did they know what they could get from it, kind of trying to find some people that had already heard about BCC, just so that I could get a feel for what it was, what it meant in the community, rather than just inside VASLan and inside the TSI's doors. But because obviously BCC as a project isn't just VASLan's project, it's also the Health and Social Care Partnerships project, I spent some time as well getting to know people like the locality managers and some of the health improvement team. So really I think a lot of my first month was spent getting to know internal VASLan, VASLan partners, and I suppose the bigger community groups across South Lanarkshire, just to really get a feel for what was happening. So because I spent a lot of time kind of liaising, if you will, with some of the bigger community groups, I feel like I have a fairly good handle on what's going on. After my first couple months, once I feel like I had gotten to know more about BCC in the community, I tended to start steering towards some of the smaller community organisations that weren't already known to VASLan. So I went through VASLan's database called EPI, and I was just looking through, finding some community organisations that had a previous relationship with VASLan to see who I could speak to, who I could just get my foot in the door with. And I did spend a lot of time doing that. I will say that a lot of my time was spent in the community, especially for those first 6 months. And I feel like my knowledge is fair. I'd say I could definitely go out and have a very busy couple of weeks speaking to all the organisations that I've either spoken to so far or are on my list for the fund kind of thing. So I do think I do, obviously it's the bit that I love most. I did spend a lot of time in the community, which means personally, from what I've gathered so far, I feel like my knowledge is quite good, I'd say. Yeah, so BCC action planning is obviously something that is a huge part of this BCC project. It is building and celebrating communities, which is finding people's individual strengths and figuring out how we can work together to better that for themselves and for the community. So when it comes to networking, when it comes to action planning, especially in this project, it's vital that you have someone like me that can have a wealth of knowledge, if you will, and the ability to speak loads. So my experience and from what I've seen so far, I feel like I would be quite good at feeding my knowledge into this, because my knowledge isn't something that just me has. I'm so able to share what I've learned so far and what I still have to learn. So in the coming months, or even in the coming years, if BCC is still a thing, I'm able to kind of pick apart my knowledge and just really get it out there, because my knowledge, thanks to VASLan's IT man Angus, we have a huge big database that everything I've ever done since the beginning of BCC is now in. So I have this big database, big dashboard of everyone that I've ever spoken to. When the fund comes out, it'll have everyone that's ever applied for the fund, and eventually we'll have good news stories as well to show what's been happening, to show the networking that's went on, getting groups to talk to each other, getting partners to talk to each other, even getting VASLan to talk to new people, and having myself speak to new people too. It's a huge big networking project as well as a community support project. So my ability to network now and in the future should be a fairly good one at that. Yeah, so like I said in my previous questions, I definitely am someone that's a wee bit out there. I do have a fairly big personality, and hopefully that's one that people can relate to. So when it comes to helping individuals, well, not helping, aiding individuals to better their own lives through their own strengths and their own capabilities and their local community groups, so far BCC has been, I would say, really quite good at that, and the fund will just dramatically make that better, I suppose. So far, we've done so much when it comes to speaking to people, networking people, like getting groups to talk to other groups. So even though there's no money into the community yet at this stage, so much change has happened, and we can see that through the way that people are coming to VASLan, through the way that people are talking to me as a person, and their enthusiasm to create new projects, to do surveys, to speak to people in their community. So even so far, I've seen a huge change in the people that I've spoken to in the community's knowledge and confidence within themselves. So to me personally, that's already a change in someone's life. If I've gotten someone off the couch, out the house, into their community, into a project, or if I've gotten someone enthused about something that they thought for doing for ages, I've already made a change in someone's life. BCC has already been making huge waves in the community, and that'll only change for the better when the money starts coming out. With the £74,000 that we've got in the bank to just completely put right back into these communities, for the community groups, for the individuals, the change in their lives is just going to grow substantially, and that's something that I'm very excited to wait and see for.